Hey, Zaka family. Zaka is launching an exclusive membership platform to provide you with career development workshops, coaching, community, and so much more. Go to ZakaConnect.com and sign up to receive information on how to access early registration and perks. Hello, everybody. This is Paul Herman, the Prince of Motivation and host of Zaka Presents My Journey. We're creating this vulnerable and positive platform where you can get inspired and motivated from different leaders from our community. Today, our guest is Katheline Jean-Pierre Coleman, who is a Senior Director, Financial Services and Marketing Solutions at LinkedIn. Katheline, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you on. I'm going to dive into this long title you got going on over here. We're going to get into that, but before we do that and talk about your what you're doing at LinkedIn, I definitely want to know a little bit more about your cultural background and where you're from. Could you just give a little bit of that?
Yeah, definitely. Because with my fancy name, I'm sure that you're curious to know where I'm coming from. So the story is I'm born from Haitian parents, but I'm a first generation Canadian, born and raised in Montreal, Quebec. And so grew up speaking French, Creole, and then learned English at school. And then now I live in California. I spent 5 years in Silicon Valley, so the Bay Area. And then now I'm in LA and where we call Silicon Beach.
Silicon Beach. Are you out there on the beach on a regular now?
I have multiple beaches. One of them is 5 minutes away, right? Playa del Rey. And I have El Toro and Manhattan Beach, which is 12 minutes away. So I'm surrounded by the sun and the beach.
Oh, that sounds like a really good lifestyle right there. I like that. I like that. Now, how did your childhood turn you into the person that you are today?
So I think it's super interesting, right? It's if I reflect back on my childhood, a couple of things that people said about me was curiosity. I'm extremely curious. I remember my mom, right? She was talking to her Haitian friend, and she would say, "Oh, Kathleen's half of her face is her eyes," right? Because I was like so curious, I would open my eyes and be like, "Oh wow!" So first, I'm extremely curious. Secondly, I have a growth mindset, which means that I believe that you can improve. I believe also, thirdly, that you can make your dreams a reality if you want it enough, but also if you take the actions to make your dreams a reality. And then I'm open-minded in a way that I'm curious and I have an appetite to try different things, whether it's a different sport or a different activity. So as a kid, I always was overbooked with trying new experiences in the sports or the arts world.
That's always good, at a young age to kind of involve yourself in a lot of things, because I think that kind of helps shape you as an individual, kind of gives you a little bit of insight of who you are. That's probably one of the first places because, you learn about teamwork, leadership, those are some skills that you acquire, by being a part of a team and things. But what were some of like those life lessons that you learned and in those early ages?
Yeah, I think one of the life lessons that I've learned was be very mindful about your entourage and where you live, what is your lifestyle, but also the people you surround yourself with, who could be your allies. I think that's critical in accelerating your life, your quality of life in your career, or actually decelerating the quality of your life in your career. So that was a very important lesson for me.
And you said your Haitian background, is that correct, right?
From Haiti, yeah.
Yes. Now, what does your culture mean to you? Some of our guests have been on the show and they talk about Haitian pride. So you talked a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think for me, the Haitian culture is very, very special, right? I think something that I learned from my parents and from like our community, it's a culture of healthy pride. And that's number one. Secondly, I would say that Haitians are very resourceful and resilient. And I'll talk a bit more about it. And then a culture of fun. I remember when I was in Haiti, like I would go in Delmat 32, which is one of the poorest neighborhoods at Port-au-Prince. And then there were like piles and piles of trash on fire in the streets. And then next to it, the kids were having fun as if there was no problem, right? So it's just learning how to see the silver lining, learning how to enjoy every single moment of your life. That's something that I definitely attribute to my Haitian culture. if I think about my family, some of the worst situations we've been in, what we've learned is we've learned to laugh about it and not go into worries and anxiety. So culture of fun, finding the silver lining and everything. I think the culture of big dreams, even if it seems impossible, I do feel that my culture, my Haitian culture, has encouraged me to dream big, even if it seems sometimes delusional. And I can talk a bit more about it. So when I was in Montreal, I had a music career, and I did a duo with a Haitian musician called Tactic Polo. Like when you look at a Haitian artist and telling you a story of like, this is who I am, everybody's asking for me all over the planet. It's just this ability to dream big and not take yourself too seriously, while taking yourself seriously is something that I've kept very dear to my heart. And I do attribute it to the Haitian culture of like, just dream big, even if might not happen, but just dream big and just go full on 100% into what you're passionate about.
I admire you talking about the whole thing about going full out and with your passion. I feel like, a lot of the guests have kind of highlighted that in our previous shows where they talked about like, they never knew where they were going to be, where they were going to turn up, but they went 100% at it, and really try to pursue that in order to get to where they were. Now, with you going 100% at things, like talk to me now about like this educational background. Like how'd you get into this?
Yeah, I think so I was in Montreal. What I did, I changed my degree multiple times, right? And I changed schools multiple times, universities. So I started in psychology because I was interested in the human nature and all the dynamics. Then I went into political science, where I graduated, where I took a lot of classes, history of the Holocaust, history of Africa, etc. And then after that, I did a certificate in journalism because I realized political science is cool, but maybe I want to be a reporter and report the news. And then I started working because I learned how to code, and then I went into the internet, and I loved it so much that I did a graduate degree, a master's degree at HEC Montréal in e-commerce. So when back in the days we were writing articles about like Amazon and all the internet startups and whatnot. So that was my path in terms of what I did at school, what I studied. And then I also had in parallel, I had a music career that I was involved in. I had a record deal and whatnot. So it was
you were singing.
I kept myself, I kept myself very busy, if I say.
Okay, multiple hats. I like that. Talk to me. So then college, you finished college. Like, what was like that first job, like out of college?
So it's hard for me to answer that question because I started working when I was 8 years old. I always worked.
Whoa, let's come on. No, we got to bring this back. Talk to me. What was the first job at 8 years old? Let's talk about that one first, and then let's get into the college one.
So, in school, you're encouraged to sell oranges to raise money and whatnot. So I started very early selling oranges or chocolate. And then I told my parents, I want to do this, even though we're not raising money for activities and stuff. I want to keep doing this. And we chose chocolates, right? So chocolate with almonds and all these. So I had my little business. I don't know if I started at 8 or before. But anyway, I would go door to door, and it was very profitable. And then what I realized, I was like, it's weird. I'm having less stock, and my sister loved chocolate. So what she would do, she would go and then eat some of my supplies. She would just eat the chocolate, and then was my profits. But that was my first entrepreneurial venture, which I think it was in retail, I guess.
Well, congratulations to your parents for supporting you on that right there. Being able to, I can only imagine the young you being so active, like getting out of school and like, I'm going to finish my work right here. And then from work, I'm going right to, I'm going to actually go out and sell candy, right, to people in the community and stuff. Now, like, what were like some of the first challenges you faced, like after college?
So after my bachelor's degree, I think figuring out what I wanted to do, right? Because when I finished political science, I was like, oh, it's a bit too heavy. So I started working for a nonprofit where we would go in schools and educate people about genocides, the Armenian genocide and all the genocides in the world. I liked it, but I felt like it was not my purpose. Then I went to work at Québécois, where I became like a content webmaster, where I would update the website with PHP and different like CSS and whatnot. So that's when I
Mm-hmm.
really fell in love with the web, because
Okay.
I realized that you could create things. And then after that, I went to work at Yahoo as a product manager and whatnot. So that's where things unfolded, and I liked it so much at
That you
Québécois.
just kept on.
Yeah. And I just did my
Mm.
master's degree. So I was doing my master's degrees while I was working in parallel, just to become expert in my field.
Mm-mm. Now you work for like product. You work for as a project manager, I believe, at Flickr. From I'm looking at your when I was looking back at your bio, like what were like some of the major accomplishments that you achieve, and like how did it kind of like propel you to be like the person you are today in your career?
Yeah. So I was a product manager at Flickr, and it was first, I love the platform. I was in love with the platform, the photo community. So one of the biggest accomplishment is when Flickr was acquired by Yahoo, we had to internationalize it, commercialize it, and launch it in multiple languages. So I was part of the product management team that launched it. My responsibility was Canada, French, and then working with my counterpart in France. So we were doing this global
Mm-hmm.
launch. So that was extremely successful in terms of monetization. We're able to generate an incremental double-digit $1 million once we activated the monetization of some of the Flickr products that we're selling. I think thirdly, I was able to negotiate very nice deals for API integrations and support our go-to-market there. And then lastly, Flickr, according to ComScore, when I started working on the platform, was number 3 in ranking in the photo platforms. When I finished, it was number 2
Mm-hmm.
in Canada. So I was very, very, very proud. And I forgot, there's another thing that I organized I love. It was the International Flickr Day, which was a big festival across multiple countries. I was responsible
Oh,
for,
that's good.
yeah, the
That's big.
Canadian. Yeah, it was fun. It was just like a photo safari, and it was great. It was like, we felt like rock stars.
Well, you,
And
you well, you definitely were playing full out over there, right? Just you were
yeah,
definitely playing full out. You definitely had your hands on a lot of things, and it that's when you really immerse yourself into like a business, into a culture, and that kind of brings me to like the next question. A lot of our guests, have talked about like the difficulties in which they had like to like assimilate into like the corporate world, right? And also just maintaining like that, just being organic, right? How did you like follow your career path and still maintain your center while you were doing all of this?
yeah, I think it's an important question, right? You always have to balance, you always have to recalibrate. So I think once I went into a company culture, I figured out what is the DNA of that company, right? And then how close or how far am I? So I think that's do an assessment, number one.
Hmm.
Secondly, you have to define what are your non-negotiables. And why it's important is because if you sell yourself short on some things that you don't want to negotiate, then you could lose yourself, right?
True.
So
Yeah.
one of my non-negotiables, even at Flickr, Yahoo, and I have a very passionate personality, and I'm creative, and I was not willing to change that. That's part of my
Okay.
DNA. That's part of,
Okay.
I'm a bit extravagant, right? I'm a bit theatrical because when I was 5 year old, my parents signed me up in the theater school, and at 5, I was on stage in front of hundreds of people, right, playing Mozart.
That's
So
cool. Ooh.
yeah. So there's some part of it that's like, listen, yes, I can be analytical. Yes, I can do all these things, but I'm not willing to just become a numbers machine suddenly and forget the other part of me that's a bit more explosive, more fun, more creative.
Mm,
So I think it's just listening and figuring out how do you calibrate, right? So if it's a
mm.
meeting, right, you figure out this is all the data. I'm extremely prepared. This is my too long didn't read my TLDR. These are the hypotheses, and this is so organizing it in a way that the senior audience could digest it, whether it's a board of directors or my SVP presenting it, and then knowing when are the moments where I can be a bit more creative.
Okay.
Like it could be like, okay, the last portion, this is when I'm gonna say a sentence that's in French or make a little joke, or right. You just have to modulate, and it's kind of like you have to navigate corporate America, figuring out how to modulate all the different notes of a song, right? So okay, I open up with this, I don't know, and sometimes you need an icebreaker,
I see,
right?
I see.
So you just have to really orchestrate how you tell the story very well when you go into very important, critical conversations and moments that are going to define your brand. And you have these moments happen all the time, every week.
Yeah.
So that's how I do it. And I don't want to change I never wanted to compromise too much, because then you go into a danger zone where you lose yourself. And then you don't want to wake up 10 years later and say, where was I? So
yeah. No, and I really like how you just mentioned the whole thing about like this was something you started at the age of 5. Like your personality was very strong back then, and that is something that you didn't want to sacrifice or give up on. And sometimes, as an immigrant background, people say, well, if I'm gonna assimilate and get more into this culture, maybe I have to kind of like put this aside. Previous guests had talked about like, their accent, or even like their language, or even one guest talked about the food that they were eating, that they were afraid to eat their food because the seasoning, the spices, where some people were complaining in the office that the smell of the seasoning was throwing them off. So they were like questioning, like, hey, look, maybe I should not even eat my own food, in here. So I know it's very hard, but, someone like yourself who had a strong personality, you walked in there, you knew exactly what you were trying to do. And at any company, if they were smart enough, they would know that that's a really good sign. You have someone willing to bring personality to something that might be very dry. When you start looking at numbers and doing the same thing over and over, you got someone like you're walking in like, hey, what's up? I'm ready to put this work in, and I'm ready to show up with a little bit of personality. And that brings me to that next question where, you worked at Google. 10 years.
Yeah.
10 years. Now, Google, I've seen stuff online and I've read, it looks like a very fun place to be at the end of the day. Looks like a very fun place. Now, I don't know if it is, but it looked very fun from what I saw. Like, what was like 2 of your proudest moments working at Google?
There's so many moments. I don't even know where to start. So I think I manifested working at Google, because at the time, I think I was working at Deloitte, and I went to the Google campus and I did a photo shoot, and I was like, one day I'm going to work here. And
like an actual photo shoot?
No, just with my phone and stuff.
Oh, okay. I thought you was like, you got a whole crew outside. I said, come on now. I wouldn't put it past you now. Come on.
No, it would have been funny. But it was fun. I think so many magic moments, right? So I think when I moved to the Bay Area from Canada, that was magical, because I always had this dream of like the big campus, right? The work campus where you have the snacks and the gigantic donuts and like the Android, and it just felt like Candyland. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the dream that I've been waiting. That. Yeah, it's true. It's
no. Hey, look, from what I saw, I visited once, but I didn't go inside, and I was like, what in the world? It's like Disney World out here.
Oh yeah. So I love when I moved from Canada to the US and I moved into the campus, I was just so excited. I was so proud. The only one in my family who actually relocated permanently, if I could say. A second magic moment was always winning awards. I won the Outstanding Manager Award from my team. And I think at the time I was pregnant. Which is always great. Like, okay, I'm about to go and that, and then multiple sales awards at Google as well. That gives you confidence and excitement in your abilities. Another magic moment that I never thought would be a magic moment was I was the MC for one of our offsite for hundreds of people, and it was like, I had a script and I went off script and I was improvising. Like that could have been.
Wait, from the top or like somewhere in the middle you got lost and you just said, I'm gonna jump off? Or or you right off the top you said, forget this script, I'm gonna do me?
I think the first 5 minutes I was just telling my script, and then I decided, okay, I'm gonna start cracking jokes. So when I talk about modulating, so I was like, I don't know, I just emerged as an MC And it was extremely fun. So that was a magic moment because I remember some of the senior leaders said, wow, you really crushed it, right? And something that I wasn't clear that was in me, but I just followed my intuition and decided I'm not going to read all the scripts and I'm going to try to flow. And it was a huge risk, but it was also a huge success. And the two last ones would be when I created the Coffee Club, which is a program for
I saw that Coffee Club. Yeah, talk to me about that.
So I think so it touched 20 different Google offices. It was across 5 continents, and we had 1,500 participants. So the program, what was touching about the program was not the numbers or the attainment numbers, but it was the stories when people come back later and say, listen, I had to muster the courage to launch a startup and to leave, and muster the courage to go live in London. So all the stories, I really had goosebumps of like how this program inspired all these women, 1,500 women, to go live the life of their dreams, right? So that's my proudest accomplishment.
With that was only for that program was only for women?
It was only for women, yeah.
Okay, because when you said women, I was just making sure I didn't. Okay, good.
Yeah.
That is amazing. That is amazing. Now, did you ever feel like at some point in time you leveraged like your immigrant background to kind of like help you out in corporate America?
100%. Because basically that program, I created it for myself initially. And then when I saw the transformation I went through, then I said, listen, I'm just going to pay it forward and then rise, help people climb as I rise. And that really helped women accelerate their leadership in their career. So.
Now, working with all these companies, you're saying you work with Google, shout out to Google, right? Google, Deloitte, LinkedIn. Like, how did you navigate such a competitive, landscape, with all these large companies?
Yeah, I think it's a good question because I have a friend who told me, I don't know how you do it working in these big corporations.
You like moving from like big company to big. It's not like you just went from a big company to something small or like to a little startup. No. Every time, like it shows the pathway that you're on. But for some, obviously your career is your career, and who you are as an individual brings the light to the company. But like, how'd you leverage all that? How'd you get through all this and get to all these wonderful companies and all these amazing experiences?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think for me, it was I followed my passions, right? So there was always something in my job that I was extremely passionate about, and that was this. I would decide to go super deep, right? Sales was something that was new for me, so I just studied, looked at the best salespeople in the company, and then read books. And for me, it was a challenge, right? I saw myself as an Olympian, and this is going to be a skill set or a couple of skill sets I had to learn. And then I just wanted to be able to learn them as fast as possible and go big. And if it would not have worked out, I would have moved on. But I'm very tenacious. So I just kept working on sharpening my saw. So I think my passion and my curiosity really helped me become.
It helped like flow into the next company. So you use a lot of those skill sets that you acquired in the first one and kind of apply for the next one and just move into the next one.
Exactly.
Now, with you, like you said, when you worked at the Google, you did you mentioned about the coffee club, like how some things that we talk about on the show is like self-advocacy. Like, how'd you advocate for yourself, during this time? And like, what is a way you would recommend, immigrants, women of color, like what is the best advice you could recommend to someone to advocate for themselves?
So how did I advocate for myself? I think the first thing is you have to find your authentic way of advocating for yourself, right? It's not like, oh, I'm going to copy Oprah or Katheline, Jean-Pierre, or you have to figure out what is your superpower and then leverage that superpower to advocate for yourself. For example, if you're a very analytical, organized person, right? Number one, something that I always do is I find somebody who's very senior and I help them solve their problems, right? Some individual contributors are focused on all me, and they go to the VP and ask for them. That's the wrong way to do it. You have to go to the VP and say, how can I help? What is the biggest problems to solve, etc. And then how can I help solving the problem? So by first is association, right? So you want to associate yourself with the most important problems in the organization to ideally your boss's boss, right? Your boss and your boss's boss and your boss's boss's boss. Help them solve the problem. And then in some shape or form, they're going to want to have, like, if you're, let's say you're, how do you advocate for your work? Well, you have to first make sure people know the work that you're doing. Let's say I'm the project lead of that project. I would send a biweekly digest on this is the problem to solve. These were the hypotheses. This is a progress we've done so far, and then ask for feedback. First is like you showcase that you're organized because you're sending a digest every 2 weeks or every month. Secondly, you show how it's not necessarily about having the best solution, but it's about talking about what was your path to finding, what is the logical path you followed to solve the problem, right? And thirdly, it showcased that you have discipline because you have a cadence where it's hard sometimes to have a cadence and respect and honor that cadence. But I think if you can do it, you're going to stand out. And then lastly, ask for feedback, because this project becomes your platform to go back to the VP and say, listen, we've been working on this for 2 months. This is where we are. Can we just have 15 minutes to, okay. And then you keep spending some time with the person. Say, this is where we are. Would you do anything like differently? And eventually you build a relationship with extremely important people, right? And that becomes your platform, and you don't have to scream on the rooftops, but you can do it in different ways. You could decide, I'm going to send that bi-weekly email or monthly email. I'm going to present in the company all hands about the progress on this project. You could also ask, there's different ways, right? And you could present in all hands, and then you could train other people. So that all helps you elevate yourself. And then you also eventually go to the VP and say, listen, what do you think of the project? Are you satisfied? Okay, can you be a reviewer for me? And then you get that seal of endorsement. And if you get lucky,
that's nice. Nice move. Yeah. Nice move.
Yeah, you can be your mentor, and eventually, if he or she gets to like you, they can become a sponsor.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I like how you navigated through that. I like how you brought it. It was definitely something to the point where it's easy to understand how to make that happen. You know, I know a lot of times when people think it's more complex than it really is, when you just do these things and you do them in this order, or more importantly, you apply yourself as much as you possibly can, you know, things could happen, you know. Now, most immigrants usually have like a side hustle. Now, I know you talked about the singing thing a little earlier, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to say that was a side hustle, but you were doing something outside of the corporate world, something that, you know, you kind of focus on outside of your career. Like, what is something you're passionate about outside of work?
Right now or in the past?
Right now, currently. What are you doing right now? Because you got a lot, you do a lot, right? And I want to know what you're doing currently right now. Is there an album coming out on the low that we should be looking out for?
No. I have recorded a song a year ago. So it happens once in a while, but I think I think right now my new obsession, and it's really because of LinkedIn, I've uncovered the world of being a creator, being an executive creator. Or COO, Dan Shapiro, is an executive creator, or CEO as well. It's not a side project, it's part of my job, but I do it because I'm super excited about recording videos, putting content out there. So I post on my profile, which is not something that I was doing before. And when I was at YouTube and Google, I always told myself, oh, I'd like to be a creator one day. And I didn't really do it. And then when I started LinkedIn, I realized that's part of the solutions that we present to customers. And it's like, listen, this is the moment, let me jump. And then when I go and talk to our CMOs and CEOs and whatnot, I can tell them about the journey, because I went from 3,000 followers to almost 6,000. And someday it's going to be 100,000 and a million and 100 million thousand followers.
You want to have that blue check, that certification right next to your name. Let's go. I'm with you. I'm gonna be on that page following. I'm like, look, that's another couple thousand she got right there. She getting ready for that blue check.
I'm ready for that blue check. And it's just, listen, you meet so many people, you build relationships.
Yep.
It's like networking in turbo. So that's my obsession. So if you want to call it a side hustle, feel free to call it a side hustle. I'm obsessed with having a voice on the platform and helping other people find the path through that.
Mhm. So does that kind of like lead into like what you're doing currently right now at LinkedIn? Like, what does the day-to-day role look like for you at LinkedIn?
Yeah, so at LinkedIn, what I do is so we talked about the three verticals. There's financial services, there's Canada for enterprise, and then there's venture, which is like electric vehicles, sharing economy, real estate. So what I do is I work with brands that could be like CEOs, CMOs, chief communication officers, directors of marketing, HR, because they all have different goals. One could be increasing their sales through media. A second one could be developing a strong employer brand, which means that becoming a brand that's more attractive to the tech audience or top talent. And then thirdly could be recruiting efforts, or
Okay.
it could be another objective that they have. And we have concentric circles that showcase that if you activate your employer brand, do a good job, it's going to have an impact on your sales. And then on your sales, it's going to have an impact on your customers, etc. So that's what we present. And we also help C-levels become thought leaders, just like what I'm doing.
Okay, okay. But it always, no matter where you go, you wear one hat, but then you like sprout out to like five other ones. But all of them are connected to each other, which is very beautiful to kind of listen to your journey. It's not like you're like, oh, I do this, and then over here in the corner, in the far end, in the right, I also do this. Like, no, everything is within that same world, which makes it so beautiful to hear you talk about it. Now, being in corporate America, doing all the things you've done, working in all these different organizations, like what is like one of the toughest challenges you face in your career? And like, how did you actually overcome it?
I think the biggest challenge I faced was feeling like an outcast. Like the biggest
Mm,
challenge was I felt like an outcast initially when I moved from Canada, and I felt like I did not belong. And I think I felt like that because, like, I'm going to give you an example. Today, I had a meeting with two people, and they were talking about a famous basketball player. And I was like, 10 years ago, I would be like, oh my God, I don't know who they're talking about. And today, I'm just like, sorry, who are you talking about? Okay. Do you know that me and Kobe Bryant, we share the same birthday, which is August 24th? And then that was it, right? And then I said, hashtag Mamba mentality. But it's just that I
okay,
didn't have,
okay. Shout
I
out to
felt,
Kobe. Rest in peace to the homie.
voila. Um, But I think back in the days, I didn't feel comfortable. I was like, I don't know what they're talking about. And I made it a big deal. You get in your head and you start freaking out. Versus now, I'm just like, I don't know who's that person. Can you ping me their name? I'm going to research about it. And then I'm going to add my own twist. This is a great story. But the best story is that I'm me and Kobe, we share a birthday. It's just like when you start really knowing that you add a lot of value and you matter and you belong and you're great and you're the
Those,
best.
those, those affirmations right there. You better come on. Let me clap it up for you right there. Those affirmations. Come on. We going to talk about those affirmations right there. We
Yeah.
need to say those more and more to ourselves. And especially as immigrant of an immigrant culture, like you're already coming from a struggle. You're already coming from a disadvantage sometimes, right? So when you say those things, it means something. And it's not just something that you follow, your culture follows it, right? And you talk about the Haitian culture and how like you guys are like resilient and you push through. So to have that in the back of you is always is a good thing. It seems like it's always been something that traveled with you through the many years in your journey. And I know your new journey. Let's talk a little bit about it. I know that your career, you're a keynote speaker as well. Is
Yeah.
this correct? Talk to me about this. Is keynote speaker. So you went from the musical world to the corporate world. Kind of like put a little pause on the musical thing, right? But now you're a keynote speaker. Talk to me about that.
I think the commonality is that let's if we look at it, Paul, I take a step back. I was 5 years old. I was in doing theater in front of hundreds of people, right? I was 5 and I loved it. I would have spent the day on stage.
5 years old. Baby,
Yeah.
we need to go. No, mommy. No, no, no. I'm staying right here. Right here. No, the next act needs to come on. No, 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 no. I'm the next act.
I just
Oh
loved
man.
it, right?
Come
And
on.
then we try to make sense of everything. The reality is that we're the same person that we were when we were kids, but we want to look serious. We want to look like, oh, we just figured it out. I like the same things as when I was a kid. The difference now is that, okay, maybe I'm not on stage for theater. I'm a keynote speaker. I'm still selling something. I'm a leader, a managing director in sales, right? I used to sell chocolate when I was 8, 5, I'm not even sure what age, door to door. I'm still selling the best chocolate on the planet, LinkedIn.
Uh,
And
okay,
this
ding,
is
ding,
secret
ding, ding.
caramel.
Give her a raise right there, LinkedIn. Come on now.
But
You
it's
know,
we do the same things that we like,
no,
right? And
you're right. You're right. And you can't lose track of who you were. You started off as a child. Like as we get to adulthood, we start taking away those things. You know, and I'm not gonna do things for myself. Kids do things for themselves every single day. They come home, they start doing things for themselves. They're not even gonna do their homework.
yeah,
They're going right into doing something. No, 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 no. You got to sit down and do your homework. So you're right about that. Given highlighting yourself in that way, and it seems like your personality as a child, carried, like I said, into your career. And it's do you feel like you use that spark that you had as a child on stage when you were 5 and when you were selling stuff? Do you use that when you in your keynote speaking?
100%.
Mm,
100%.
mm.
Sometimes I go on stage and I make jokes and I'm like, you're getting a car and you're getting a car, you're gonna get a car, you're gonna. So it's theater, it's like it's the spice, right?
It's a
Talk about,
show. It's a show. You're a performer at the end of the day.
yeah, it's you're a performer, exactly. So it's and the thing is that there's different ways to perform, right? Like if you're Jay-Z, you have a mic and whatnot. But if you're Steve Jobs or like, I don't know, Elon Musk or Satya Nadella, you're gonna perform differently. We're gonna talk about this
True.
is new AI, Gen AI, but it's a performance, right? It's a show. It's like
Mm.
if I come and I talk to you about a phone, right? There has to be like a story around the phone. So it's the same thing. Whether you wrote the script or it was written by Moliere uh, or Shakespeare, it's still
Yeah.
a performance.
True. True. True.
Yeah,
I'm with you on it. That's why, like, when you go into school and stuff like that, studying communication, studying sales, marketing, those things are very helpful because you could then utilize those things in your career. Um, and when you're a keynote speaker and you're out there in front of thousands of people, speaking, right? What is something that you want the people to walk away with? Like, what is like one of the main things you like to promote in your keynote speaking?
I think I talk about different subjects, right? I think one of them is where there's a will, there's a way. So there's always a hack and a way to solve a problem that can be beneficial for all. And
Mm,
there's always a way to bring your dreams and make them a reality, right? Maybe not overnight, but I think from the intention to the actions to the relentless pursuit of achieving that goal or ambition, it's possible. So I think that's an important message because sometimes when you're facing a situation, you have a problem, whether it's at work or personal life, you think it's going to be forever that you're going to have this problem. But the beauty is nothing lasts forever. So the problem that you have is nothing lasts forever. And if you can figure out how to solve the problem and create an opportunity and make your dream a reality, then you have figured out your own blueprint to
mm.
live that life of your dreams. I know it sounds a bit far-fetched.
No,
Um,
no, no, no. Mm-mm.
so I think that's number one. I think number two, I would look at one sentence I always told my team is they would come with a problem and I would say, what are you going to do about it? I didn't even know that I said that, but one girl said, oh, Kathleen always says, what are you going to do about it? I was like, oh, do I? I said, yeah, because you're sitting here and what are you committed to? Are you committed to complaining to me? Are you committed to solving the problem and making things better?
Mm,
So
mm, mm,
for me, that's the
mm.
second thing, right? If whatever I talk about marketing or sales or anything, is what are you going to do about it? And then thirdly, it's if you have only one life, because everybody has different beliefs, is this the way you want to spend it?
Mm, mm, mm. Great way of putting it like that. This is how you want to spend it. Now, Kathleen, I must say, like, this interview, you really dropped a lot of gems, and not only the gems that you dropped in regards to like your life and your journey, but like things on the side, like how you could actually advance, like how you advocate for yourself. And I appreciate you, just sharing all these words and advice. I just want to know, is there any last words you would recommend for someone who wants to follow in your career path?
Yeah, I think first you have to be very clear of what are your non-negotiables,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Yep.
write them on
Yep.
paper.
I remember
The
that was a
things
good
that
one
you're
right
not
there.
willing. Yeah, and how long, right? Is it, oh, I will never, never, right? Sometimes it's like, oh, I'm going to negotiate that I'm going to spend three hours commuting, but I'm not willing to do it more than 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then
A little timeline. Yeah, I get you.
yeah, timeline. I think secondly, you have to be clear about what is your superpower. You have to be in the inquiry of what are you uniquely positioned to solve in this world? What is this magic that you bring? Right. And then sometimes you don't know. And it took me a lot of time to figure out what it was. And for me, it's people have told me when I was in sales at Google, it's like when you come into a room, the energy shifts. And then I looked at the person, it was my manager, former manager, Rishi, and I was like, what is this? It took me a bit of time to understand what he's talking about. And then I was like, oh, maybe it's inspiration, right? So, and then what goes with inspiration? Oh, well, speaking engagements, keynotes, leading a team. So really understanding what is your
Mm-hmm.
superpower. And that's
You
one of them.
you
Another one
definitely
is,
found it.
yeah,
You
is
definitely found it.
we talked about resourcefulness coming from being creative and being from Haiti and whatnot. So that's another superpower. Is like if there's a problem, I'm going to find different ways that we could potentially solve it. And then thirdly is you had to triple down on your superpower, right? Triple, quadruple down, whatever that is, you're gonna go big on it. And then you're gonna work a little bit on the edges, right? You want to round the edges where it's like this area you're really not good at. So you want to improve enough such that it's good
Mm-hmm.
enough. That what's gonna help you go further is tripling down on your superpower.
Mm-hmm. Miss Kathleen, thank you, thank you, thank you for just sharing your passion, your knowledge, and just a lot of gems with us on the show today. Um, I really admire just that, and I'm never going to forget it now. Just like that young child, I could think about it. Like you said, I was like, "Hey, what was your first job out of college?" You're like, "No, I've been working since I was 8." Right? Some people they run away from working, right, for themselves as an entrepreneur, but you were already an entrepreneur and a leader at the age of 8, and look at you now. I know your parents are very proud of you, and it's a blessing to have you on the show today. So, Kathleen, again, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure, and I hope it's helpful for other people as they're
Oh,
creating their own.
definitely will. Definitely will. You were very vulnerable and letting us know the goods and the bads. And I think that's very important for all of our listeners here at Zaka. And I want to let the listeners know, if you want to hear more inspirational stories like Kathleen, check us out on ZakaConnect.com. Follow our social at Zaka Connect and follow our feed, Zaka, wherever you listen to your podcast.